Empathy Podcast.
You know what I'm saying? What's going on, world? We around here with these fucking weirdos around here, son. These people is fucking weird as shit out in Morton, PA.
The phrase nervous system regulation gets thrown around a lot lately, usually in the context of taking a deep breath or taking an ice bath. We treat it like a wellness hack. But there is a much sharper edge to this. The body processes non-physical events, betrayal, harassment, intimidation, with the exact same biological alarm system it uses for a physical attack.
The body cannot tell the difference between a predator in the woods and a boss who is quietly ruining your reputation. The nervous system is a pattern recognition machine, constantly asking one very simple question: am I safe? When the answer is consistently no, the biological response is identical, regardless of whether someone actually puts their hands on you. The threat is logged, the alarms go off, the system floods with stress hormones. It is a primal reaction to modern, invisible violence.
Invisible violence. That shifts the frame. We naturally look for a bruise or a broken bone to validate trauma. Without that physical evidence, people tend to think they're just stressed, or worse, making it up.
They tell themselves they are overreacting because society has this deeply ingrained hierarchy of harm. Physical harm sits at the top. Everything else is treated as a psychological inconvenience. But your brain does not categorize threat that way. Take harassment, for example. Harassment attacks peace. It is not always a loud, explosive event. Often it is a low-level, relentless hum. An email at 11 p.m., a subtle change in tone, a look across a room. Your brain realizes the environment is hostile, so it starts scanning. You enter hypervigilance. You begin tracking patterns, analyzing tone, predicting the next strike. That takes a massive amount of caloric and neurological energy. You get locked into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and you stay there. The body is essentially bracing for an impact that never physically arrives, but never stops threatening to happen.
And while that scanning is happening, the background processes are breaking down, sleep being the first casualty.
Sleep deprivation attacks recovery. That is the biological anchor here. When you are under threat, your body naturally wants to stay awake to guard the perimeter. But sleep is when the brain clears out metabolic waste. It is when stress hormones are supposed to reset. When you lose sleep, the brain gets more reactive. Emotions hit harder. The concentration drops. You lose the biological capacity to calm yourself down. The baseline of what triggers a panic response gets lower and lower.
I am not sure sleep deprivation belongs in the same category as harassment or betrayal. The others are deliberate actions taken by an external party. Sleep deprivation is a physiological state. It feels like an effect, not an attack.
I see the distinction you're drawing. Harassment has a perpetrator. Betrayal has a perpetrator. Sleep deprivation often looks like a byproduct. But actually, if we look at abusive dynamics, high-demand groups, or extreme toxic workplaces, sleep deprivation is frequently weaponized. It is induced by the environment, unreasonable deadlines, late-night messages demanding immediate responses, creating a culture where resting is equated with weakness. The environment creates the sleep deprivation, which then strips the individual of their biological defenses. The sleep deprivation becomes the mechanism that makes the harassment and betrayal hit twice as hard. It breaks the armor.
So it is the solvent. It dissolves the nervous system's ability to bounce back from the other attacks.
That is exactly the mechanism. And then we have betrayal. Betrayal attacks trust, but on a nervous system level, trust is not a philosophical concept. Trust is safety. We are social primates. Throughout human history, our survival depended entirely on the group. To be betrayed by someone close, a partner, a family member, an institution you dedicated your life to, signals to your body that your tribe is unsafe. The ground gives way. Your body reacts as if the world itself is no longer stable. That is a deep, foundational nervous system shock.
This explains the bizarre physical symptoms people experience during a crisis. Racing thoughts and tight chests make sense. But then there are stomach issues, jaw clenching, internal shaking, the feeling of being wired and tired.
The wired and tired state is the hallmark of chronic nervous system overload. Your body is exhausted from carrying the physiological load of constant threat, but your brain refuses to let you rest because it believes you are still in danger. It is like driving a car with the emergency brake pulled all the way up while slamming the gas pedal to the floor. The internal shaking, that tremor people feel in their chest or limbs that no one else can see, that is pure adrenaline and cortisol that has nowhere to go. There is no predator to run from. There is no physical fight to burn off the chemicals. The body just absorbs the toxicity. Over time, that chronic elevation of stress hormones begins to wear down heart rate variability, digestion, memory. It even increases pain sensitivity.
Which leads to the person feeling entirely detached from themselves, the numbness, the paranoia-like hypervigilance.
The numbness is the freeze response. When the system is so overwhelmed and neither fighting nor fleeing is an option, the body's last resort is to shut down to minimize pain. It is a brilliant survival mechanism. The problem is, when this goes on too long, it morphs into burnout, severe anxiety, and trauma responses. A person starts to believe they are fundamentally broken. They feel weak. They think they are losing their mind. But they are not weak. They are simply overloaded. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do when trapped in a prolonged attack.
One of the suggested methods for calming this down is keeping logs, documenting the harassment or the betrayals, writing it down.
Keeping proof outside of your mind is crucial. When you are being gaslit or harassed, your brain tries to hold on to every single detail to protect you. It plays conversations on a loop. It memorizes timestamps. It does this so you are not caught off guard. By logging it, writing it in a secure document, or taking a screenshot, you give your brain permission to put the burden down. You outsource the vigilance. You tell your nervous system, I have recorded the danger here. We do not need to keep it active in our short-term memory.
Wait, does that actually hold? Because staring at a spreadsheet of every terrible thing someone has done to you seems like the perfect recipe for staying trapped in hypervigilance. You are literally reviewing the threat data.
Reviewing it endlessly, yes, that will keep the system flared up. But the act of logging it is different from ruminating on it. The goal is not to read the log every night. The goal is the cognitive offloading. It is the realization that if you need the evidence, it exists in the physical world. Your brain no longer has to be the sole guardian of the truth. People under severe emotional threat spend massive amounts of energy terrified they will forget how bad it was, or that they will be convinced they made it up. The log is an anchor. Once the anchor is dropped, the mind can occasionally drift toward rest. It must be paired with limiting exposure to the environment, of course. You cannot heal in the place that is actively making you sick.
That requires drawing a hard perimeter, reducing contact, protecting the sleep window even if the sleep itself is imperfect, getting basic hydration, returning to the physical body to fix the non-physical injury.
You have to signal safety to the body in a language the body understands. The body does not understand logic. You cannot simply tell yourself you are safe. You have to prove it biologically. A regular sleep window, breathing techniques that extend the exhale to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, walking, eating food, talking to someone who is actually grounded and trustworthy. Slowly, the question, "Am I safe?" begins to return a different answer. The alarms quiet down.
The body registers the absence of danger eventually. It just takes time for the biology to catch up to the reality.
It takes time and it takes deliberate proof. The nervous system is stubborn because its stubbornness kept our ancestors alive. It will not stand down just because you changed jobs or blocked a number. It needs a sustained period of calm, a steady diet of safety before it finally believes the war is actually over.
The threat leaves the environment long before it leaves the tissue. Those non-physical attacks reshape the baseline, and resetting that baseline is deliberate, quiet work.
It is quiet work, and it is entirely possible. The nervous system adapts to danger, but it also adapts to peace.
Send this conversation to someone who might be carrying an invisible load right now. Share the link so they know they are simply overloaded, not broken.